Super Bowl ended over a week ago, and I was expecting a relatively quiet offseason ASIN, but within a span of a week, we saw James Pierce throw away his life, the NFL being involved in the Epstein files, St. Fan Diggs having the worst week of his entire life, and Tyreek Hill getting released by the Kansas City Chiefs. As a result of that, there is so much news that just slipped underneath the cracks that I personally felt like was worth bringing to you guys, but there was no way I could make separate videos on all of these topics. The NFL right now is a ticking time bomb. In this video, we're going to break down every single thing that is happening, because trust me, by the time free agency opens on March 11th, this league is going to look completely different than it does now. And what I'm about to tell you near the end of this video about one particular player quietly wanting out might be the biggest story that nobody is talking about yet. Now, before we get to the content, if you guys aren't subscribed to this channel, make sure you are, because otherwise YouTube may never show you more of my content again, and I'm consistently bringing you the latest NFL stories that ESPN won't be telling you about. Now, let's get to today's video. Mic check 1212, what's going on, everybody? If you missed our last video, I'll give you a brief rundown about what's happening in Miami because they're in the midst of a full roster demolition. On Monday, the Dolphins released Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, Nick Westbrook, Ain, and James Daniels. That is 4 roster cuts in a single day. Their new general manager, John Eric Sullivan, and their new head coach, Jeff Hafley, both coming over from the Green Bay Packers organization, which keep that in mind because that's going to be significant when we talk about another potential free agent later on in this video. That's been heavily linked to the Miami Dolphins, but clearly these individuals are sending a message. The old Miami is dead. We are starting over. Now, let's talk about the big names. Tyreek Hill, an 8-time Pro Bowler, one of the fastest players the NFL has ever seen, just got cut. The man is coming off of a brutal knee injury. He's about to turn 32, and he had a $16 million guarantee looming on March 13th. So Miami pulled the trigger before that money kicked in. And Bradley Chubb, who actually had a solid year leading the team with 8.5 sacks, was carrying a $31 million cap hit, and he's gone just like that. After all of these releases happened, a post went viral on X from Adam Frell claiming that Jalen Wadd reportedly told the front office, "Me next," after finding out about the Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb cuts. Now, this post came from a parody account, so the report itself was fake. But what kind of makes this interesting is Waddle even responded with a cap emoji, basically calling it a lie. But then, and this is the part that's got all of the internet losing its mind, Waddle actually liked the original post. So the man denied the rumor and then liked the post about it. You can interpret what that means for yourself. Now, whether Wadd actually wants out or he was just trolling, the damage is already done. The internet is running with this. And remember, at last year's trade deadline, the Buffalo Bills were already the highest bidder for Jalen Wadd before Miami pulled him off of the trade block. ESPN's Bill Barnwell has said Miami would demand at least a first-round pick for Waddle given his team-friendly contract, which pays him about $68.6 million over the next 3 years. Since entering the league in 2021, Wadd has put up over 5,000 receiving yards and 26 touchdowns, with at least 100 targets in 4 of his 5 seasons. He is a legitimate number 1 receiver. Recently, he hasn't played so well for Miami. Whether that's Tua's fault or Mike McDaniel's system failing him or his own regression is up for you to decide. But if he actually wants out of Miami, there are going to be teams that are lining up for him. And we haven't even gotten to the quarterback situation yet, which might be the messiest part of all. All signs are pointing toward Miami moving on from Tua. Per Ian Rapoport, Tom Pelissero, and Mackeo, John Sullivan was asked about Tua at a fan event, and he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "We're getting close to a decision, and when we do, Tua will be the first to know." At his corporate speak for, "Start packing your bags." But here's the problem. Getting rid of Tua is a financial nightmare. He signed a 4-year, $212.4 million extension before the 2024 season. He has $54 million in guaranteed salary for 2026. If Miami just cuts him outright, they're looking at a $99.2 million dead cap hit, which would literally be the largest in NFL history. Even a post-June 1st cut would still leave them with $67.4 million in dead money this year. A trade is the ideal scenario, but they'd have to eat a huge chunk of that salary. And honestly, who's trading for a quarterback who threw 20 touchdowns and a career-high 15 interceptions last season while he's still consistently dealing with concussion concerns? You guys already know my favorite Tua moment from this past year when he threw an interception and Mike McDaniel consistently just pointed to the bench, saying, "To the bench you go." Tua himself even admitted a fresh start would be, in his words, dope, after getting benched mid-season. So, what are the Dolphins going to do at quarterback? Well, this is where our next storyline connects the dots perfectly. Malik Willis is about to become one of the most fascinating free agents we've seen in a while. The former third-round pick out of Liberty was a complete bust with the Tennessee Titans. But after getting traded to Green Bay for a seventh-round pick in 2024, the dude completely reinvented himself under Matt LaFleur. Over his 3 starts the last 2 seasons, Will has completed 78.7% of his passes for 972 yards, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and added 261 rushing yards with 3 more scores on the ground. That is absurd production for a backup quarterback. Now, yes, that is an incredibly small sample size, just 3.5 games, really. But in a free agent quarterback market that is absolutely barren, Willis is a hot commodity. SBO projects he could command a deal around 2 years and $35.5 million annually, which is wild money for someone with so few starts. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Cleveland Browns are interested in his services, but the #1 contender to sign Malik Willis would be the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins just make too much sense. Both their new general manager and their head coach spent their last 2 seasons in Green Bay. They saw Willis develop up close and personal every single day. They know exactly what he can do and exactly how to use him. And remember, their only quarterbacks under contract for 2026 are Cam Miller and Quinn Ewers, a 6th-round pick and a 7th-round pick, assuming that they cut to us. So the Dolphins desperately need a quarterback, and Willis is the type of quarterback that could thrive in a Bobby Slowick offense. But they're not the only team with their eyes on him. And that brings us to what might be the most quarterback-hungry franchise in football right now. The Minnesota Vikings are at a crossroads, and I mean that in the most dramatic way possible. I think we're going to be making a lot of videos on this team in particular this offseason, Asen, because they have the most fascinating situation in all of football. 2 years ago, Sam Darnold led this team to a 14-3 record, and they were one of the best teams in football. Then they let Darnold walk. He went to Seattle, won a Super Bowl, and the Vikings watched from home. Meanwhile, J.J. McCarthy, the guy they traded up to draft 10th overall in 2024, has been a complete roller coaster. J.J. McCarthy started about 10 games for the Minnesota Vikings, and in those 10 games, he completed 58% of his passes for 1,632 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Now, here's the thing. Jeremy Fowler dropped a bomb when he reported that all the top available quarterbacks this offseason want to go to Minnesota. Think about that for a second. It makes a lot of sense. Why would the Vikings let Sam Darnold walk to begin with? Well, they were banking on Kevin O'Connell being this quarterback whisperer, the guy that got the most out of Kirk Cousins, the guy that got the most out of Sam Darnold, and he was going to recreate magic one more time with J.J. McCarthy. Kevin O'Connell was considered one of the best quarterback coaches in the NFL. They have Justin Jefferson. They have a defense that was dominant under Brian Flores. They are a quarterback away from being a legitimate Super Bowl contender, and every available quarterback knows it. It's why Aaron Rodgers wanted to go to the Vikings so badly last year. So, who could end up in purple? This list is honestly insane. Malik Willis is an option for sure, but then you have Kyler Murray and Derek Carr, and those are just the headliners. Ian Rapport confirmed that the Vikings plan to bring in at least a veteran quarterback this offseason, and it's not just going to be a placeholder. This could be someone who takes McCarthy's job outright. Remember, O'Connell and the coaching staff don't have unlimited patience. They fired their general manager, and the word around the league is that its playoffs are bust in 2026, which brings us to one of the biggest names in the entire quarterback carousel. The Arizona Cardinals are about to make one of the most expensive breakups in NFL history. Adam Schefter reported on Super Bowl Sunday that Arizona wants to explore trading Kyler Murray, and since then, the drumbeat has only gotten louder. New head coach Mike LaFleur was non-committal about Murray during his introductory press conference. Multiple insiders, including Albert Breer, expect Murray to either be traded or cut. So, when I look at Kyler, it probably makes it more likely that Arizona just flat out has to move off of him and cut him. Here's the financial picture, and it's ugly. Murray signed a 5-year, $230 $500,000 extension back in 2022, and he's already guaranteed $36.8 million for 2026, regardless of what happens. But there's a critical deadline coming up. If Murray is still on the roster past the 5th day of the new league year, which starts on March 11th, an additional $19.5 million in 2027 salary becomes fully guaranteed. That means Arizona has roughly 3 weeks to figure this out. A trade would save the Cardinals $34.7 million against the 2026 cap. But finding a trade partner willing to take on Murray's deal is complicated. ESPN's Bill Barnwell predicted the best Arizona might get is a 4th-round pick from a team like the New York Jets. A 4th-rounder for a former number 1 overall pick and 2-time Pro Bowler. That is how far Murray's stock has fallen, and honestly, can you blame teams for being hesitant? Murray has played the full slate of games in only one of his last 4 seasons. In 2025, he managed just 5 starts before a foot injury shut him down. He completed 68.3% of his passes for only 962 yards in those 5 games. His career record sits at 38-48-1, with just 1 playoff appearance, which was a lopsided loss. Meanwhile, backup Jacoby Brissett came in and actually posted better numbers, putting up 3,366 yards and 23 touchdowns even though the team only won 1 game. The most likely scenario is Murray gets released and hits the open market. And ESPN's Jeremy Baller has said Minnesota could be the destination because Kyler Murray wants to go to a winner. If he gets cut, he can sign for the veteran minimum while still collecting his guaranteed money from Arizona, kind of like what Russell Wilson did with the Steelers after Denver released him. That would make Murray an insane bargain for a contender. Now, I mentioned earlier that a retired quarterback is going to be coming back from the dead, and if you haven't heard this one yet, buckle up. Derek Carr retired last May due to a torn labrum and rotator cuff damage. But recently, he came out and said this. Moral of story, would I come back? The answer obviously is yes. Good. Okay, great. But I had to say no a couple times so far. Yeah, Will, we know that. Do I have any purple and gold? Go Lakers. Oh yeah, that's what I mean. It's Laker season. That's right. I told you this. It hasn't changed from the first interview that we did. Tell them. Okay. Tell the people. All right. Would I do it? Yes. Would I do it for anybody? Absolutely not. What makes this even more interesting is that the New Orleans Saints still hold Derek Carr's rights. Albert Brerillier noted that Carr's leverage in forcing a trade is that his unretirement would create serious cap implications that would force New Orleans to work with him on a deal. Most insiders expect an amicable split where the Saints either trade him for a mid-round pick or just release him. We literally just watched Phillip Rivers unretire at 44 years old and come back to Indianapolis last season. So the precedent is there. Carr is only 34. His shoulder has apparently healed to the point where he's fully throwing again. And in a quarterback market this desperate, a 4-time Pro Bowler with 35,000 career passing yards is going to have options. Look at the Vikings, Colts, Steelers, Falcons, and even the New York Jets as potential landing spots, either as a starting QB or even as an insurance policy for teams like the Colts or Steelers. Remember when Anthony Richardson broke the NFL Combine in 2023 and everybody thought that the Colts had their franchise QB of the future? Well, you fast forward 3 years, and ESPN's Stephen Holder is now reporting that it's beginning to feel inevitable that Anthony Richardson will request a trade from Indianapolis this offseason. It's so unfortunate because Anthony Richardson has probably my favorite throw in NFL history. But at the same time, through 3 NFL seasons, Richardson has thrown for 2,400 passing yards with 11 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, averaging a 50.6% completion rate. He started only 15 games. In 2025, he threw literally 2 passes the entire season, and this is despite Daniel Jones suffering an injury. He also dealt with yet another injury, a freak accident where a resistance band snapped and fractured his orbital bone, causing vision limitations. The Colts have started 8 different quarterbacks in their last 9 season openers, and Richardson is the only one to start more than once. That tells you everything about the instability at the quarterback position in Indy. Meanwhile, Daniel Jones came in and had the best season of his career before tearing his Achilles in December. He put up 3,101 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, and finished top 6 in the NFL in completion percentage at 68% and pass rating at 100.2. Chris Ballard has said there's mutual interest in re-signing Jones long-term, and the team has also warmed up to 2025 sixth-round pick Riley Leonard as the backup moving forward. So where does Richardson go? Here's where it gets interesting. Some analysts have connected him to the Arizona Cardinals, who could use a Murray-like athletic quarterback to develop under Mike LaFleur. The Dolphins, Steelers, and even the 49ers have also been mentioned. But let's be real, Anthony Richardson's trade value is not that high. I mean, think of Trey Lance's value when he was traded from the 49ers at the peak of what the Colts could get for Anthony Richardson. But take a look at quarterbacks like Kenny Pickett, Sam Howell, Justin Fields, and Taylor Heinicke, who were all traded for draft pick compensation in recent years. There's a market for boo quarterback projects, but a former top 4 pick with 15 starts, a losing record, and a history of injuries, that's going to be a tough sell. Now, I told you at the beginning of this video that there was a story brewing that might be the biggest one that no one's really talking about, and this is it. Maxx Crosby, the 5-time Pro Bowl pass rusher, might be done with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, there's been rumors in support of this and against this. The rumors have been coming out since the end of the miserable 3-4 season, and they aren't going away. Jake Glazer reported that Crosby is done in Vegas, and other reports have gone as far as saying that he's already told minority owner Tom Brady that he won't play for the Raiders again. Now, Crosby himself isn't confirming any of that. On Jim Gay's podcast, he said he's focused on getting healthy after a recent meniscus tear, and he doesn't want to throw gasoline on the fire. But notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, "I'm a Raider for life." He didn't say, "I want to stay." He just talked about wanting to play meaningful games. And that silence speaks volumes. Now, the Raiders' new head coach, Clint Kubiak, sat down with Crosby for a meeting. And while Albert Brerillier said it went well with good rapport, he also said nothing really materially changed. The expectation is that Crosby's camp and the Raiders will have more significant talks at the NFL Combine later this month. If a trade happens, the price tag is going to be huge. Jordan Schultz had said that the Raiders would only move Crosby for a package along the lines of what the Cowboys got for Micah Parsons, which was 2 first-round picks and a starting-caliber player. Look at Crosby's production and tell me he doesn't deserve that. The man has 69.5 career sacks, is a 5-time Pro Bowler, and is only 28 years old. In 7 seasons, he's played in only 1 playoff game. 1, and that was the wildcard loss to Cincinnati in 2021. This dude has been an absolute monster stuck on a franchise that has won 7 games in the last 2 seasons combined. The Eagles, Patriots, Cowboys, Seahawks, 49ers, Bills, and Bears have all been mentioned as potential suitors. If Crosby gets dealt this season, it's going to be one of the biggest trades in recent NFL history. And that's the thing about all this. Every single one of these storylines are connected. The Dolphins blowing it up opens the door for Malik Willis, who the Vikings are also interested in, which could mean that Kyler Murray ends up in Minnesota. With Kyler Murray going to Minnesota, Arizona might want a bridge quarterback to mentor any quarterback that they draft, so Derek Carr coming out of retirement makes sense. Or maybe Arizona wants to trade for Anthony Richardson to develop him under Mike LaFleur. It's all one giant web of quarterback chaos, and we haven't even talked about the Falcons likely releasing Kirk Cousins. Or how about the fact that the Super Bowl MVP might be a free agent? The Steelers are trying to figure out what to do with Aaron Rodgers at the age of 43. Or who's going to be the Jets starting QB this year? This is all I could fit in this very extended video. The NFL free agency period opens on March 11th, and the legal tampering window begins on March 9th. That is less than 3 weeks away. In that time, we could see Kyler Murray get cut, Tua get traded, Maxx Crosby force his way out of Vegas, Derek Carr unretire, Anthony Richardson get dealt, Malik will sign a massive contract, and the quarterback landscape of the NFL shift. This offseason might go down as one of the wildest offseasons we've ever seen. Now, if you want to make sure you're up to date with the latest information, make sure you subscribe because otherwise YouTube may never recommend you one of my videos again. Aside from that, I don't know if you guys heard, but the NFL's in the Epstein files. It's a wild story. Thanks for watching.